Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peppy Peter Watson.
And I'm Dropout Dave Steele, and this episode was probably my idea, it's safe to say. We're winding up towards the end of the year, listeners. We have a sort of precedent for doing little flashback episodes as we get towards the end of the year, like we did an Eclipso story and a Suicide Squad story in the past. So this week, prompted by, I think it was a post I saw on Facebook, you'll know which panel it was when we get to it. I saw this panel and went, oh, we could do this. We could do this. Peter, we could do this. This could be, we do this towards the end. And Peter was like, and I was like, it's not even 7 pages, mate. And Peter was like, oh, okay.
And I said, I suppose it gives us a chance to talk about characters we wouldn't normally be talking about.
Yes,
so yes, that's fun.
We wouldn't be talking about these people at all, I don't think, unless they pop up somehow in Showcase 100 or in a panel of Crisis on Infinite Earths where they get wiped out, which I don't think they do. I don't remember ever spotting them. But anyway, listeners, this week we are going to be reading a story from issue 5 of Swing with Scooter, which was published on the 22nd of December, 1966. So it's very timely because we're obviously releasing this episode in December. Scooter is the lead character of Swing with Scooter, and it was one of several titles DC did, which I suppose it's fair to say they were trying to do the Archie Comics thing.
Yes.
We're all familiar with Archie Comics, aren't we? Archie and Betty and Veronica and Jughead and all that. And Peter, on a bit of late night eBay drunk buying, has turned something up which might mean that we can actually do an Archie story on the podcast in the future, so stay tuned for that one.
Yep, coming soon in 2025.
Yes, I think Peter and I should not be allowed on eBay after 11 p.m. It's not healthy as I look at my ever-growing bundle of Impulse original art. But anyway, so the sort of premise for Scooter was that he was an English lad who moves to Plainsville, USA, leaves his band, the Banshees, and goes to America to try and make it big. Obviously riffing on stuff like the Monkees and the success of the Beatles and all that. But DC also had other titles that were in that sort of teen humour type situation. The longest running of these series was, of course, Leave It to Binky, which was published between 1947 and 1977.
Wow.
But I should say there was over a year of a gap between its final issue 82 and the previous one, issue 81. I've got the final issue as a sort of POTUS election themed cover, and I posted it on our socials when we did our Prez episode a few months ago. So scroll back if you want to look at that. There's also a tie-in book called Binky's Buddies that ran for 12 issues. Additionally, there were the 4 issues of Windy and Willie, all published in 1969, and all basically reprints of an older TV tie-in book called The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Have you ever seen The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis?
No.
Are we even pronouncing it properly?
Possibly not. I don't think we got it here.
I don't think we did either.
No.
It's like the Super Friends cartoon. Listeners, write and let us know if it's not pronounced Dobie Gillis. Additionally, of course, there was Date with Debbie, which ran to 18 issues, and Debbie's Dates, confusingly, which ran to 11 issues. Swing with Scooter, which we're talking about this week, made it to 36 issues. And again, like similar to Binky, there was over a year of a gap between issue 35, which was published in 71, and issue 36, which came out in August 72.
Wow.
And within Scooter's book, there were other characters that had their own sort of little adventures. Characters including Malibu, Sylvester, and Penny and Cookie. Again, it's another of these series. It'd be great if DC just bit the bullet and did an omnibus, because I'd buy it.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Very of its time.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted that we managed to find a reason to actually cover an issue on the podcast. Issue 5, Peter is going to tell you very quickly, very loosely about the cover.
The cover has got a vaguely pirate theme, but that's got nothing to do whatsoever with the story, so we'll just skip straight ahead to the story,
Yes,
I think.
it does have a nice checkerboard thing at the top, though, so it's nice to do one of those. We haven't done it with them for a while. We will obviously refer you to the Checkered Past podcast, who prioritise such things. So, listeners, if you have your copy of issue 5 of Swing with Scooter, flip past the opening story, which is very exciting and has lots of beach scenes and pirate ships. And that's either a full moon on the rise on the cover or a setting sun. Take a drink either way. So we flip through. Towards the end of the book, we are greeted with a caption which reads,
A Day in the Life of Scooter.
And we see Scooter. I should probably describe him for you. He looks very much like Paul McCartney.
Yes.
What if Paul McCartney was in a DC humour comic in the late 60s? It's pretty much what he looks like. We see him wearing a double-breasted green suit, a very fancy orange and black tie that Peter could get away with. He seems to have smiley face cufflinks, which are interesting. And he's sat in a big chair talking to a very thin-looking man with brown hair, thick framed dark glasses, wearing a loud purple suit and a white and black striped shirt, an orange tie with green polka dots. He's scribbling furiously on a pad. And they're obviously sat in a comfortable room in Scooter's house. And we can see, poking in through the windows of this room, dozens of teenage girls are obviously beside themselves with excitement to see this famous pop star. Now, there's a lady standing behind Scooter, very matronly looking figure with big bouffant, strawberry blonde hair. As we're not devoted readers of Swing with Scooter, we're not entirely sure who she is. Maybe she's his housemaid or maybe she's mum. If you're a regular listener, you can write in and let us know. There's a very badly drawn guitar to his right, so we'll see if he plays any tunes on that. But with all of this going on, Scooter is proclaiming to the lad who's scribbling away on his pad, "But why do you want to interview me? I'm only an average, typical teenage American boy."
I wouldn't say that, Scooter. Not every teenage American boy quits a successful English singing group to come to the USA to live.
Okay, but I still don't know what you want of me.
I want to spend an entire day with you so I can write a feature for my magazine titled A Day in the Life of Scooter.
Awesome. So in the first panel of page 2, Scooter and his interviewer, who I think would have been played by the young Roddy McDowall if this had been on television,
Oh, very much so, yes.
are sat down at the table, and the lady who was stood behind Scooter has a penny round her, so I'm guessing she must be his maid or his cook or something. She has walked in, she's putting plates down on the table in front of them, and she's saying,
"Here's your breakfast, Scooter. Beefsteak and kidney pie, some kippers and a spot of tea."
"See, a typical American morning meal," says Scooter. In panel 2, Scooter and his interrogator have gone outside, and they're climbing onto his small motorbike, the vehicle which Scooter got his nickname from. His scooter, indeed. Should point out that in the tree above them is another group of little teenage girls that are watching them, and it's very, very amusing as Scooter is saying, "Now, I just hop on my wheels and off I go to school, like any other typical American boy." With a whump, the 3 girls fall out of the tree and hit the ground. Unfortunate. Panel 4. As they speed along the road, we see that they're being pursued by even more teenage girls who are driving after them in a big red car. One girl is standing up at the back of the car, whirling a lasso, and she says,
"A little closer, Mabel."
but the lasso girl is unsuccessful in her attempt to lasso Scooter and his pal. Instead, her rope goes around a nearby fire hydrant. All of this is being watched by a very indulgent-looking policeman who says,
"There goes that girl lassoer again, and her aim isn't any better than it was the last 100 times.
And because, indeed, she has lassoed the fire hydrant, as the car keeps speeding on, she's suddenly pulled out of the car and goes flying. Scooter's interrogator looks appalled. Scooter is not paying attention. He's got his eyes on the road, as he should have. We are continued in the second page following, and in the first panel of page 3, we're at school with Scooter. Scooter has his eyes on a book, and all the girls in the class are turning to look at him. His interrogator is there, and the school teacher is saying, "Students, I'm sick and tired of all this idiotic gaping. Now turn front and tend to your lessons." And then we see that the teacher looks down at the book in front of her, and there's a signed photograph of Scooter with a caption that reads, "To Miss Nutmeg, a real peach of a teach, Scooter," and we can see that Miss Nutmeg's heart is beating faster as she reads it. The next panel, later in the day, Scooter's interrogator is watching as Scooter now has his full American football, because that's what we would call it over here, gear on, is running up and down the pitch. Is that what they call it? I don't know. But the
field.
The field. Okay, that'll do. He's running up and down the field. And the coach of the team is standing to the side with a whistle in his hand, and he yells,
"Okay, team, tackle that runner."
And then in the next panel, we see everyone, absolutely everyone, piling on Scooter. He vanishes in a cloud of dust as the coach rubs his head and says,
"Boy, I never saw the guys go after a runner like that before."
And then in the final panel of page 3, we see why. Some of the helmets and stuff have fallen off, the dust is cleared, and we can see that Scooter has been jumped upon by, well, the coach tells us,
"No wonder, they're girls. Come on, let's scoot her up."
And Scooter looks appalled, but the girls are all delighted to have got a hold of him. Fantastic. In the first panel of page 4, it's another lesson. We're in the art class. See, the girls all sat around drawing in their pads. A couple of people at the back have got easels. There's a little specky lad with an easel. There's another girl with a brilliant fringe. She's drawing on a mounted easel in front of her. Their teacher is an older-looking woman with grey hair, another spectacular fringe, a spectacular nose, and in front of her there's a bowl of apples and oranges and other fruits, and obviously they're drawing a still life. The teacher is saying to the class,
"Now, show us how realistically you can draw this lovely bowl of fruit."
And in panel 2, we get a bit of a shock, along with Scooter's interviewer and the art teacher, as they lean forward and see that all of the pieces of fruit in the bowl in front of them have had Scooter's face drawn on them. Scooter's oblivious, he's drawing away in the background, but yes, that's a great panel. It's a bit freaky. We can see the heavy black lines of Scooter's fringe and his wide smiling face. Fantastic. Later in the day, still, Scooter and his interviewer are standing. They're looking out the window outside, and the weather has taken a turn. As Scooter says, "Man, look at that rain. We'll have to make a run for it." And the next panel, indeed, they are running along, and we can see that they're being followed by another group of girls, one of whom is carrying a very large umbrella, which is helping keep Scooter and his pal dry. As Scooter says, "Blimey, it isn't raining as hard as I thought it was." The final panel of page 4, Scooter and his interviewer and a bunch of girls are running across the grass in front of the school to where Scooter's bike is parked. Looking down at the ground, Scooter observes, Zipsville, look at that glop. It's worse than quicksand. And as they approach Scooter's vehicle, one of the group of girls surrounding it yells,
Here he comes, chicks, get ready.
And in the first panel of page 5, we see that they're prepared and they've laid out a red carpet for Scooter to run along as he gets to his bike. And as he approaches in panel 2, we see another girl wearing an orange jumper and a sort of purple hat, purple leggings. She has a spanner in her hand. And she's saying, I feel so grand. I fixed Scooter's flat tire, the darling. In the next panel, Scooter and his pal scoot off on the bike as she sits there in the rain, blissfully happy, covered in oil and grease, and she says, Yesterday, I cleaned the spark plugs, and the day before I oiled the leather seat, and the day before that was a slow dissolve. As Scooter and his interrogator arrive somewhere else, and a caption reads,
That evening at the Monster Discotheque.
and we see, this is very interesting, very moody lighting given from a single candle. Scooter and his interrogator are standing in front of the doorman, who has a very grotesque-looking mask on, gives him an exaggerated big nose and big teeth and big ears and big wide eyes, and he says to the two of them,
Sorry, kid. There are no seats.
And then from inside the club, a group of girls yell,
Yes, they are, Scooter. You can have our seats.
And they all stand up, and the doorman looks appalled, and the girls all excitedly invite Scooter and his interrogator to join them. First panel of page 6, they've obviously been there for a little while. One girl is saying to Scooter,
Scooter, would you dance with me?
Sure, says Scooter in reply. And then in the next panel, the girl's eyes go wide. Little stars start floating around in front of her as she says,
He said, yes.
and then in panel 3, she's flat on her back in amazement. And the Scooter walks away looking a little disappointed. He says, I guess she changed her mind. In the next panel, the poor unfortunate girl is being carried out by two mask-wearing members of staff, and if that's not the cover for an issue of Strange Adventures, I don't know what is. Scooter, looking very Paul McCartney indeed, addresses the camera almost and says, Zipsville, for some reason I hardly ever get a chance to dance with any of the girls, but I guess most typical American boys have to put up with that kind of jazz. Final panel of page 6. Scooter and his interrogator are back on his wheels, heading back to his home. Scooter is saying, well, your day with a typical American boy is almost ended. And we can see, take a drink listeners, a full moon in the sky. And we also see the silhouetted forms of a few figures standing outside Scooter's house, one of whom looks quite familiar. And indeed, as we arrive at the top of page 7, as Scooter makes his way into the house, we can see that the silhouetted figures were the forms of Hawkman, Batman, the Flash, Adam Strange, and Superman. Their presence prompts Scooter's interrogator to say,
What are you superheroes doing here?
And then 3 of them get a close-up in the next panel as Superman, Batman, and the Flash say in turn,
Well, we hoped we'd be able to get Scooter's autograph.
I guess he was too busy.
That's okay. We can come back tomorrow.
Final panel of the story, Scooter is once again sat down in his lovely swinging apartment as he says, as you saw, nothing much happens in the life of a typical American teenager. I bet you're going to be real stuck for something to write about. And his interrogator slaps his forehead and says,
Oh, I'll think of something, but no one will believe it.
And a tiny caption reads,
The end.
And the page is rounded out with a Bitch and DC House ad featuring Action Comics, Detective Comics, and an issue of Adventure featuring Validus and the rest of the Fatal Five, causing hassle for Feral Lad, Superboy, Cosmic Boy, Princess Projector. So that really helps tell you when this was all going on. So, why did I suggest to Peter that we did this story, listeners? Because those final panels feature the Barry Allen version of The Flash and Adam Strange, which points to the adventures of Scooter taking place on Earth 1.
That's all for this episode. No, seriously, yes, it most certainly could be Earth 1, or it could be the Inferior 5 type Earth.
That's a thought.
The humour of this kind of fits in with that very well.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, obviously...
Earth 12, I believe it's hypothesised as.
Yes, it has been hypothesised extensively, but nothing in any of the stories we've read so far has mentioned Earth 12. So,
No.
there we go. That's what
So
we have to
far.
say. Yes, what we have to say on that. I mean, it's possible because there were obviously versions of some of the heroes in Inferior 5 continuity.
Yes.
The fact that Adam Strange has appeared alongside the Justice League, and this is very obviously Barry's version of the Flash. I think, you know, it's maybe okay to speculate that this is one particular corner of the Earth 1 DC universe, given that obviously we know that the Phantom Stranger and the House of Mystery pop up there as well. And there's an Earthworm Wildcat and all that sort of stuff.
Listeners, what do you think?
Yes, do you think Scooter is an Earthworm, or do you not think Scooter is an Earthworm?
Interesting.
It's a fun little story, I think. It's very amusing that Scooter just goes through everything unaware of seemingly quite a lot of it that's going on around him and the effect that he's having on other people.
It's like his own superpower almost. Yes.
Very much it is. I was very amused by the sequences in the Monster Discotheque and all the stuff at school when he's just quite happy going about his day, but everyone else is going mad around him. It says a lot, I suppose, about the nature of fame and how people perceive it.
Yes.
Be it they're at the heart of it in their own little bubble, or they're the people that go nuts at seeing a pop star. Very, very interesting.
It's very Beatlemania.
Very much so.
Very, very
which is a
Beatlemania.
nice... I mean, obviously, if this... When did they say this was published? 66? Oh, yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
That's between Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, so yeah.
I can practically hear the Austin Powers soundtrack as I'm reading this.
Yes, very groovy. Very groovy indeed. Listeners, what earth do you think Scooter is on? You could write and let us know. How would they do that, Peter?
You could email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting up some lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and at Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all of our socials.
It certainly is. As I always say at this point, if you could find inclination to go wherever it is you receive your podcasts and give us a positive review, we would appreciate it. Spread the word, tell your pals. If you've got a pal who's a big fan of Swing with Scooter, point him in our direction. You never know. Yeah, we'll be back next week. We're attempting our very first dedicated Christmas episode. We'll see how that goes if we manage it.
Way.
Yeah, on that bombshell.
I've been Peter.
And I've been David, and you've been listening to the Earth2 Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Listeners, just as we were finishing recording there, I happened to look at issue 3 and noticed on the cover that someone in the background is reading a copy of Batman.
Yes, so that obviously means that, I don't know what it means, but there we go. We had a look through and it doesn't seem to feature in the story. It's just a generic cover. So we're not doing issue 3 of Swing with Scooter next week, don't you worry.
And there's also a Batman radio at the front of the
that's
cover.
Interesting. Batmania, what's 66, isn't it?
It is 66.
Interesting. Gosh, what have I started?
Indeed. Bye!